Here's a truth that most people don't want to admit, and I don't know if it's because they're making excuses or they just don't know, but you don't need a 10-person crew or a Hollywood budget to pull off a high-impact virtual event. But what you do need is strategy, tight execution, and a team that knows the platform better than most. A new client recently brought us in to lead the production for their 2-day virtual conference using Zoom events. They already had their own internal team that was focused on speaker logistics and attendee support. So with just a 2-person team, we focused entirely on the tech. This meant running the keynote sessions, managing the backstage flow, producing the live stream to make sure that every speaker hit that virtual stage like a pro. This resulted in their smoothest conference yet with what they said was their best production ever. And they already said they want us back to make it even better for next year. That's why in this video, I'm gonna walk you through exactly how we pulled it off, from the pre-planning to the tech rehearsals, the live production flow, and what we learned from using Zoom events as a platform. So you can stop guessing and start producing events that actually move people. All right, let's start with the discovery call. When they first reached out, they were just looking for tech support, someone to help prep speakers and make sure that the show didn't fall apart live. I mean, that's a pretty standard ask, but here's the thing. A lot of times when people say just tech support, it usually means that something was left on the table on their last show. So I decided to dig a little bit deeper and ask certain questions, like what were the challenges that you faced last year and what would really make this event a standout success for you this year. And that's when she told me that last year was their first time using Zoom events as a virtual conferencing platform. Bingo. Most teams think that Zoom events is just another version of Zoom, but the reality is they barely scratch the surface of what's possible. Because if you're using Zoom events and you're not fully leveraging it, it's not just a missed opportunity, it's money left on the table and impact lost in translation. So instead of just nodding and taking the job of tech support as is, I decided to pitch a simple shift. Let us bring a broadcast style feel to your event using the tools that you already have within Zoom events. Things like clean layouts, branded graphics, structured camera framing, not introducing a whole bunch of unnecessary complexity or tools, but utilizing what's already available within the platform itself. Now, this did 2 things. The first thing it did was it positioned us as leaders within the lane of technical production. If we're just offering tech support, we're kind of waiting for them to tell us what to do and what they need, as opposed to us giving them the suggestions and showing them what's best for what they're trying to accomplish. The second thing that it did was it allowed us to show them how we can elevate their experience without completely blowing their budget by introducing a whole bunch of new components that they may not have been ready for at that moment. So the call went well, and later that week, she sent over some recordings from last year's event, and I knew then and there we were going to be able to completely elevate the experience for them. This allowed us to turn ourselves from just another line item in their budget to a key driver and strategic partner in the success of their event. Here's something I've learned after producing dozens of events. When a client reaches out to you and say they have an internal team and they're just looking for tech support, usually what they mean is, please take the lead on this and don't make it harder than it has to be. And that was the case here. The lead of their internal team kicked off the first meeting to set the stage, but by the second meeting, there was a clear shift. They weren't leading the conversation anymore. They were waiting for us to take the lead. And this is when I realized they weren't just looking for tech support, they were looking for a production partner. Every call after that, they were looking to us for direction. What needs to be done? What's the best way to handle this? How do we make sure nothing slips through the cracks? It was clear they were counting on us to spearhead the production side. No long checklists, no micromanaging, just trust in our ability to get the job done. So we stepped in with this simple mindset to take the technical stress off of their plate completely. We created our own internal workflows, started meeting outside of the team meetings, and created a clear roadmap of what needed to be done. So that way, when we showed up on those team meetings, they had the clarity of where we were going without the complexity of how it was supposed to get done. And this is where our strategy really came into play, because we didn't just ask what they needed. We identified pain points that they didn't even know could be solved. Like last year, the issue they had with their sessions ending and the downloadable resources going with them. This year, we created a resource booth within their Zoom events lobby, so that way attendees could access any handout, PowerPoint, or slide deck from any session, any speaker, any given time throughout the entirety of the conference. This might seem like a small detail, but it's the little things like this that build trust. It's what made their new project manager say that she finally felt confident, and it's what made their team feel supported instead of overwhelmed. And most importantly, it's what allowed them to focus on what they do best while we ran the tech behind the scenes like the pros. And we don't do that by accident. That's by design. Because when you can drop into an existing team's workflow, earn their trust, and move your lane forward without hand-holding, that's the difference between being a partner and just another contractor. Now let's talk about the actual execution of our strategy during the rehearsals and the live show. We started rehearsals about a month before showtime, and from the jump, we treated every rehearsal like a full production. We kicked things off with a structured walkthrough. Anthony, my teammate, led a 15-minute presentation to get them primed on all of the things that they needed to know, from camera framing to lighting to audio to how to share their screen. And then I stepped in to simulate the live flow of what it was going to look like the day of. But interestingly, the part they complimented most about the rehearsal was the vibe. And I don't say that as some kind of vague buzzword. It was a culmination of soft skills that I've seen give clients a great experience time and time again. Most tech support keeps their camera off, which I do recommend during the actual show. But for the rehearsals, we decided to flip that. We kept our cameras on, we stayed present, we engaged with them, and we made the experience feel human. Because when you can see the person guiding you through the process, it builds trust. Then the rehearsal becomes more of a conversation and less like a checklist. I mean, we even cracked a few jokes, went off script here and there, and just made it easy to connect. And that paid off. One of the speakers said that it felt like therapy to her. Another speaker said that this was the most relaxed she's ever felt before having to do a virtual talk. And honestly, I can just say that that's what happens when you blend soft skills with technical clarity. Keyword blending. Lean too far on the technical side and they might be prepared, but they might still feel stiff or unsure on how it's gonna go. Lean too far on the social side and yeah, they might like you, but you're risking glossing over critical details that they need to know to be prepared. So it takes a little bit of practice, but just figure out that sweet spot of a balance between being social, having those soft skills, and also bringing that technical clarity to make sure that they know what to expect and are fully prepared for that virtual event. Now, by the time we hit the live show, everything was fully locked in. Anthony handled the tech checks, the backstage transitions, pushing speakers live, and I ran the production flow, switching camera scenes, aligning slides with camera views, doing the live countdown, and also cueing opening slides with music to set the tone. Now, were there curveballs? Of course. Like the keynote session not automatically recording because of a setting in their Zoom event setup, but like anything, we adapted instantly, fixed it, and made sure that every session after that was good to go. Attendees loved the look and feel, and the client said this was the best production they've ever had. Even the intro music got compliments from the attendees, which I wasn't expecting, but I put some thought into it. So, you know, I'd appreciate some compliments. I put a little bit of thought into it. But visually, if you compared it to last year's Zoom event where they literally had the camera from the speaker cropping over the content that they were sharing, I'd say this was a home run. This year felt intentional, elevated, and easy to watch. But like I always say, this doesn't happen by accident. Rehearsals aren't just sound checks and screen shares. They're how you build trust. They're how you catch small issues before they derail big moments. They're how you give your speakers and presenters the confidence to show up and deliver. They're not optional or nice to haves. They're essential. They're the foundation to every seamless event. So the show wraps, the feedback's great, and the client's already talking about next year. But let's rewind for a second. Was Zoom Events actually the right call? So from a producer standpoint, I'd say that Zoom Events is a solid entry-level platform for conferences that want to look more professional without having to build from scratch or break the bank. It's a great fit for organizations who want to run virtual and hybrid conferences inside the Zoom ecosystem without having to hire an external platform team. And if your internal team already knows how Zoom works, Zoom Events gives you a low friction way to scale that up into a multi-session experience that gives you registration, expo booths, email campaigns, and a built-in production studio that gives you broadcast style layouts. That's actually why this client chose it. They told us they'd previously spent over $30,000 working with a third-party vendor to build out the platform and manage their entire event. This year, they wanted the platform management to be internal and just bring us on for technical production. And with Zoom Events, they delivered a smoother, more polished show and saved money doing it. But let's break it down. What worked and where it fell short. All right, let's start with what Zoom Events got right and where we saw the biggest wins for our client. The production studio lets you create on-screen layouts and manage the visual flow of your show. I like the fact that they give you about 50 pre-built layouts that are pretty much good for any scenario, different speaker views, presentation and speaker combos, gallery view, just about anything you can think of. And they're dynamic. So let's say you have a 6-shot gallery scene, but only 4 people show up. It's gonna adapt automatically to those 4 people. And the same thing goes for content too. Let's say someone stops sharing their screen early. It's not gonna just show this big black rectangle to the right or to the left of them. It's gonna just go back to their camera view and you're good, like nothing ever happened. So for planners who are used to basic Zoom webinars, this is gonna provide a serious upgrade to the look and feel of your event. You can pay per attendee, and it even allows for overselling in case your registrations start to exceed expectations. So if you're looking to stay under budget without compromising on quality, that's a huge win. Now here's where Zoom started to fall short from a production standpoint. There were some moments that made me stop and say, all right, we need to work around this. Those 50 layouts that I mentioned earlier, that's all you get. You can't create custom layouts, you can't resize elements, and you can't create new scenes once the session goes live. So if you didn't build in any redundancy or contingency beforehand, Zoom says, too bad, you should have thought of that earlier. As a producer, I want to be able to adjust things in real time if need be, and Zoom just doesn't give you the freedom to do that. Another area that gave us headaches in the pre-planning phase were file design and size limitations. Uploaded videos were capped at 150 megabytes in 5 minutes, which may sound fine initially until you realize that most high-res videos blow past that cap instantly, which made us have to go down the route of linking a YouTube playlist to be able to show all of the videos to the attendees, which it was a fine workaround, but now you're pulling people off of the platform and it's just not an immersive experience as it could be. And I don't even want to talk about the strict aspect ratios because it was just so annoying. We had to resize so many different things or use different pictures, and it just puts such a limit on your creativity and the amount of assets that you can actually use. Now, here's the thing that pissed me off the most. You can't operate the show from the backstage. You have to be in the actual webinar in order to run the production studio or to mute people or to change scenes or to do anything in the webinar. You cannot do it from the backstage. It's like, what's the point? The whole point of having a backstage when it comes to being in production, especially on a virtual event, is to be able to operate the show from behind the scenes and not have that added risk of you accidentally showing your screen or you accidentally being unmuted, but being able to operate the show from the shadows, if we're going to use that phrase, right? Being able to be unseen and unheard and still manage the show. And we were able to work around it, but it just added so much unnecessary risk and complexity that it really kind of rubbed me the wrong way with Zoom Events marketing this as a true production solution. Now, the last thing, and this is more so for the event planners and anybody on the logistics team, and you might already know this if you've worked with Zoom or Zoom webinars before, but Zoom sends out individual emails for every single session. So that means that the speakers, myself, the people on the team, we all got separate individual emails for each rehearsal that we were doing, along with each session that we were doing, along with everything else. It was a separate individualized email. And you can see that this starts to get cluttered really, really quickly. Even the internal team had to continuously remind speakers that they would get another new email for them to join the actual session and not to re-click the link that they got for the rehearsal. And I mean, if you find a way to structure it, it may not be that big of a deal, But you can see if you don't have a strong internal team or communication within that team, those kinds of things can get messy pretty quickly. I mean, even I had to pin my co-editor invitation email to my inbox just so that way I wouldn't lose it in the sea of Zoom emails that I was getting throughout the process. So who is Zoom Events really for? If you're an event planner or an organization that is used to Zoom, tired of basic webinars, and working with a small to mid-sized budget, then Zoom Events is a solid option. It gives you an all-in-one platform. Ticketing, session access, sponsored booths, email reminders, production tools, all under one login. But if you're a producer or a creative that wants real control, you're gonna feel the guardrails of Zoom Events pretty quickly. You can't edit layouts, you can't cue scenes from backstage, you can't build custom visuals, and while the built-in features are decent, in my opinion, they feel kind of half-baked. And that was the part that frustrated me the most about Zoom Events. They give you just enough to be excited, but not enough to execute at a truly professional level if you've been used to producing events like this before. So here's my final take. If it's your first time hosting a virtual or hybrid conference and you want something clean, accessible, and budget conscious, Zoom Events will get you 70% of the way there. And if you partner with a team who knows how to work around the platform's blind spots, you can still deliver a seamless, high-quality experience. But with all that being said, I want you to remember, no platform is going to carry your event. It's your team that does it. Zoom Events might be your stage, but it's your people, your prep, and your production that's going to bring your event to life. So there you have it. Two-person crew, smooth execution, and a virtual show that looked and felt like it actually belonged in 2025. If you want that same level of clarity, strategy, and confidence behind the scenes, book a consultation down below and let's talk. I don't want you to have to figure this out alone, and my goal has always been to help you stop guessing with your AV and start building events that actually have an impact. Because you shouldn't have to keep crossing your fingers and hoping that your tech holds up. You just need people who treat your event like the main show and not an afterthought. So with that, I appreciate you for watching this video, and I'll catch you on the next one.